the summary at the end? You want to do that, or you want to record little clips?
I'll do little clips.
Okay. This is the main water shutoff at the southeast corner of the garage. You have a very large copper water line coming into the building. Copper water lines typically provide you with good water flow, and this is called a pressure regulator. This reduces the water pressure coming into your building because in some parts of San Francisco, the water pressure is so high it puts a lot of stress on the pipes. So this device, the pressure regulator, reduces the water pressure to a more reasonable level. When we get to the water heater, I hope to find another device called an expansion tank that is supposed to be installed at the same time as a pressure regulator. If I do not find one, I'll point it out to you. We'll point it out to you anyway, and we'll talk more about it later on.
Okay, I won't get you, sorry.
Over here, this is your main gas shutoff. This is for the common boiler. You have a gas shutoff valve right there. You have a wrench over there, which you can turn the gas meter off with this valve. Turn this a quarter turn so it'll be perpendicular with the pipe. This is an automatic gas shutoff valve, an earthquake valve, referred to the manufacturer's manual that came with this, or online. It'll tell you what to do if there's a large earthquake and it turns off. Most plumbers are familiar with this, and they can reset it if necessary. Okay.
So,
Let me look and see what we have here. Now I'm already confused. We're going to S. Right?
S as in
S
Sam.
Okay. Okay. So you ready? Action. All right. So we are very close to the garage door at the front of the building, and this is your main electrical shutoff. You have 90 amps of electricity, which is a tremendous amount of electricity. It's actually more than a unit this size is required to have, but you're not paying anything extra to have all this electricity to your unit. It's just there at your disposal, so it's fantastic that you have it.
all right, here we go. Pull. It's this little cord, not little, this tall cord that goes up there. It's kind of hokey, and it opens up the garage.
Okay, so you pull it when you come in to shut the door.
Okay.
And then you go out and pull that one.
Oh, when you go out, you pull the other one. So you open it this way and close it that way. And now I'm walking out. The inspector is inspecting the garage. See, that's good. Instead of like all the stumbling, the...
I have a question on that. We just had a whole thing in this room in my office. Isn't it a certain number of units in a there's different
Five. It's all
kind of big.
here. Okay, so here we're at the back of the building, and we have this large garage opening right here. And this building, having been built in the mid-60s, would have some earthquake elements and seismic elements that at the time of construction they usually did what we know as anchor bolts that secure the building to the foundation. The foundation, by the way, is the concrete that goes along the perimeter of the building. Now, there are some things that we do in buildings when we build them today that we didn't necessarily do back in the mid-60s. Again, going back to this very large opening here, since it's such a large span, I suspect that there's a steel beam running through here. However, that steel beam may be supported by wood columns. Now, if this building were built today, oftentimes what they would do is put in steel columns going downward, and they would actually put in what we call a concrete grade beam going across the bottom, connecting the steel columns. And what this does is it provides what we call a frame. It gives the building resistance to movement, side-to-side movement. Now, San Francisco recently passed an ordinance saying that buildings that are 5 units or more will need to undergo a structural engineer's review to determine if seismic improvements are needed. Buildings that have very large openings like this oftentimes are considered what we call soft stories. That's an opening here that is a bit more vulnerable to earthquake movement. So I have the feeling that this building will need to go under seismic review by a structural engineer. And if that structural engineer feels that improvements are made, they'll come up with a design, which may include installation of the steel frame that I just talked about a moment ago. Thank you.
Something like that, how much does it cost?
Something like that can cost $15,000, $20,000 per frame, and they may want to have one back here, one in the middle somewhere, maybe one up front. It's hard to say. That would require structural engineers review again to determine what type of reinforcing, if any, would be needed for this building to meet the new standard that the city has drawn up. And the standard the city's drawn up is still on the drawing board. Even though they passed this ordinance, they haven't really fine-tuned exactly what they want. I'll have a copy of the website that you can go to on my report that tells you more about this. What's that?
You're gonna
Point to the water heater room?
Yeah.
Okay. Here, I'll point to this. Faceplate should be put on this electrical outlet here in the laundry room so that nobody accidentally touches the electrical connections in there. All right. The railings here on the building were built to the standards of the time of construction. Standards have now changed, and these railings are considered to be too wide by modern standards. Now, this is typically something that you would not be required to change out, but I do want to let you know about in case you have small children coming around. What the issue is sometimes they put their heads in there and they cannot get them out. So if you're concerned about such things, keep an eye on your small children that drop by to visit, so they don't do that. We have cracks in the skylight.
So we're on the very top. I don't think, Kate, you and I walked here, so we're walking on the roof now. Ooh, look at the views. God, what a great place to have a roof. Yeah, right, as I fall down.
So this is called the tar and gravel roof. The gravel protects the tar from the sun's rays. A roof like this typically lasts about 18 years. Now there's some areas where the gravel has been brushed aside, such as this, and you can see where cracking has started to develop in the tar. I'm going to recommend some patching be done in these areas and that a silver paint be applied to it. The silver paint is called aluminum roof emulsion. It helps reflect the sun's rays. This roof, just by its condition, does appear to be approaching old age, but I could also be deceived by the cracks I see on the edge.
It's 7.5 years old.
Okay, so it's about middle age, so I'm a little bit deceived. They need to maintain this roof a little better by putting the patching along the edges here and silver painting it. Now over here we have a certain type of siding which we call mineral shingle. Some people call it asbestos shingle because oftentimes it has asbestos in it. It's very common in San Francisco. Many buildings have it. Where people are usually concerned about it is if they are removing it, then they have to pay disposal fees, or if they're drilling into it, then they need to wear certain protective gear if they're disturbing any fibers. Now we have some shingles over there below the roof line that are starting to become dislodged. I'll recommend a handy person push those back into place and secure them so that water doesn't penetrate the
I
building.
don't actually see where you're pointing to. Oh, I can't walk that close.
If you go over there, you can see where.
Oh, okay, hang on. Okay, got it. So we're going on the neighbor's roof to see something.
Okay, so here we have wood siding for our building, and you can see the paint is starting to crack and flake away. Paint actually provides you with waterproofing, and if water is allowed to get into the grains of the wood that you see there, over time it may start to deteriorate the wood. So I'm going to recommend that a waterproofing contractor / painter come out here and do some painting of that wood over there. On this videotape way down there at the bottom. All right. So you see there's a black gray surface way down at the bottom.
Yeah.
That's actually a roof. And
Yep.
if you go towards the back of the building, you'll see that people are using it for planter areas. Well, that roof, which is called modified bitumen, is a very nice type of roof surface. It's not really designed for people to walk on all the time and store things on, because over time, foot traffic can deteriorate the roof. If they wish to use that as a pedestrian surface, then installation of some sort of decking material should be considered. What the modified bitumen roof surface looks like up close.
That's a neighbor's roof.